Okay, next. Hey, hi everyone, and welcome to episode 7 of Asura's Bride called Here's a War. And today we have Molly and Anne Rose and Tina, and y'all can say hi and introduce yourselves.
I'm Molly. I've been on before, and I'm happy to be back. And thank you, Mindy, for doing the podcast.
I'm Tina. Hi. I know it says Lucas's iPad. Don't judge me. I have not been on the podcast. It's my first time. I'm very excited to be here. Yeah.
But yeah, you're very active on the Facebook group. You're one of the moderators, right? And
yeah, I'm actually one of the admins on the 𝗦𝗡𝗙𝗋𝗄𝗎𝗍 Facebook group, and I am very active on the 𝗦𝗡𝗙𝗋𝗄𝗎𝗍 and on the official 𝗦𝗡𝗙𝗋𝗄𝗎𝗋 official group. I love MPL. I love Asura's Bride. It's actually one of my favorite webtoons ever.
Yep. And Anne Rose, you want to say hi?
Hello. Hi, everyone. Mindy, thank you for inviting me back and for your flexibility. I'm excited to record another podcast. It's been a while, and to discuss Asura's Bride with all you ladies. And I didn't realize that you had a podcast, so I'm on your podcast right now. I'll be adding $1 to them. Not much, but
thank you. Thanks, Anne Rose. Okay, so we ended off last episode where she found out, Yuwa found out that this is King Asura, and she confronted him. She said, "Why didn't you tell me?" And she basically confronted him as someone evil. And he did try to explain to her that he is a king and he has to be responsible for his nation, and maybe things are not what she thinks they are. So that's where we left off there. He left her in the tent to contemplate. And we start off here where he's coming out of the tent, and we're back in color again, so that's great. And he tells whoever's standing outside, he says, "I'm going to get her something to change into." Well, actually, I think the guy talks first. He's like, "Your Majesty, we weren't expecting you to be out this early," because they were expecting him to basically consort with Yuwa, and that didn't happen. And the guy says, "The council has been demanding for your presence." And Ulaan says, "I'm going to get her something to change into. Come with me. I need you to take them to her," because he doesn't want to deliver it himself. "I'll see the council when I'm done." So our ever thoughtful Ulaan getting her clean clothes after their sojourn through the woods. And he's like, "Now, Majesty, you don't need more rest and your injury." And okay, so obviously Ulaan is someone who pushes himself. He doesn't, he just came back from battle. We know he hasn't slept for a long time and he has that wound, but he's not bothering. He's going to do his duties because he is a very responsible person.
Gorgeous.
Yeah, and meanwhile, we have her in the tent, and she is, it looks like a pretty nice tent. It's well decorated this time. It's like a rug and furniture and tapestry. And he's still talking outside. He says, "Just a few words with them, and then I want to check on Kara, his horse." And Yuwa is thinking to herself, she thinks, so he isn't feared by his people like the stories say, but I shouldn't be surprised. A king who fights alongside his men in battle, who lowers himself to that level in spite of his highborn status, he must be a hero to his kingdom. So Yuwa here is having second thoughts, and she's reconsidering everything that she's known about King Asura. And, we kind of talked about this in previous episodes, but, when nations are at war, they usually depict the other nation in a very bad light, and they think the other one's wrong and they're the ones in the right. So, now she's reconsidering everything that she's been told because she's having personal contact with the king. And, she's admiring someone who he's not just sitting there and directing the war, he's actually fighting with his men. And that's something that she is admiring. Oh, and there's this beautiful picture of Ulaan on his horse, looking all warrior-like as he is. Yeah. And, with his horses rearing, right? That's the word. I'm a city girl. I don't know these words. But, and he's flashing his sword in his full armor. It looks great. And then she thinks to herself, but would I have done the same if I had been born a man? And now she flashes back into a memory. And Anne Rose, you want to take over from there?
Oh, sorry. So we discuss the 8 panels, and then do people just chime in afterwards? Because I know traditionally when we've
Yeah,
done.
let's chime in whenever. Mhm.
Oh, okay. So now I'm going to discuss post after this gorgeous shot right there. This one scrolling down to where the grandma. Okay. So just my thoughts are, I think I felt bad for her, but then at the same time, a lot of people when they experience that. So in the past, so maybe I should backtrack. Here we have a grandmother showing the little that scroll badge thing of her grandson who died in battle and presenting it to Yuwa because she's part of the royal family and because all of the people fighting in this battle have died in honor of the king. The grandmother just felt like she could do something about this to prevent more unnecessary deaths. And I think emotionally she's feeling conflicted. She doesn't really have that much say as a woman, and then this person comes in, the king's grand advisor, and I felt like I know his role was underhanded in the whole. He was the one who kind of placed her in that situation, and he knew what to do. I was just still iffy about his. I mean, did he have supernatural powers as well? Because one of the panels, his eyes was glowing, but it wasn't this one. I'm not sure. So that I was left confused about that. But then are we allowed to show the cartoon in the thing or no?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't show the full cartoon, but like if it's a panel here, a panel there.
So the panel that I'm looking at right now is her. There's no image of her on her face, and she's just sitting there. She's in the enemy's tent, but she's thinking about that grandson that she used to play with and feeling like, okay, I couldn't do anything to prevent that from happening. And now here I am in this position where she too feels like a traitor, and I just feel bad for her. And she's seeing, it's like, I feel like a traitor, but we've exchanged these really open, heartfelt conversations with each other. And he saved her life, and then in the next panel he's kind of feeling the same thing too, like I betrayed her and I knew fully well who she was and deceiving her. But that's not my panel to talk about, so that's, hopefully I made sense. Okay, thank you.
I mean, I think just to kind of talk a little bit more about those previous panels, and maybe you guys, the image of her contemplating that where she's got no face. Am I right in that we've seen that before in a flashback where there's no face in Midnight Poppy Land? I don't know. I could be just totally making that up, but I just feel like it's so dejected and sad, and to bear like sort of the burden of being in the royal family, but also being the 4th princess and having no power, being a woman. I think that scene or that image just is so sad.
No, I agree. Like it is very sad, and it's also it's like dejecting. It's just like, well, it makes you feel like not useless, but it's just like, what can I do? It's like you have this high position, your nobility, you're a princess, and you have this person who even though that person she calls her nanny, she's obviously someone that she was like maybe possibly even raised the 4th princess, and she tells her not to bow, not to like kneel in front of her, and this person is just angry and upset at them, and there's literally like she probably feels like there's nothing that she can do to help this person.
And one thing I noticed, like Yuwa was the fact that she didn't want her to kneel to her. So Yuwa is clearly, we see from here, not concerned with like her own honor. She probably was her nanny, and she's like, no, you mustn't kneel to me. So she's not someone to stand on ceremony and say like, oh, I'm highborn, or, I'm the princess, you have to kneel to me. And she also wants to help her. She says right away, tell me what you'll need. She wants to be helpful to her. And then in the end, she can't, because she can't really do anything about that war. But she volunteered to sign up to be sent to this. So that was her way of trying to do her part in ending this war.
Right. And I wonder, like in the, in the contemplation that she's having here in the next scene, does she feel like she's failed because she's been captured? Because at one, she thought, okay, I'm going to take my sister's place to get married to this guy since my sister ran off, and so does she feel like, okay, I mean, obviously she's got to be very unsure of what her future is, having been captured by the enemy. And has she, I don't know, I just kind of feel like she must feel like sort of like, okay, now what can I do? I'm in this guy's tent and I'm captured, and so is it my turn?
Yeah, I think that in a second, but before we do that, I just wanted to point out, did you see how the nanny says, do you remember my grandson? He used to give all his candy to you because your brothers took them from you.
Yeah.
So like, we see time and time again throughout this story that Yuwa has been pushed away and relegated and mistreated by her older siblings.
Right.
So
good point.
it really gives you context into understanding who she is and what she has experienced so far.
Also, if I could just interject, this advisor, the one that says that King Asura must die, like he's one of the characters that I feel like if this ever became a longer series, I know it's completed, but like if LadyDust was ever to come back to it, that this character would definitely get fleshed out more, because it's as if like he's being set up to be like this sneaky villain that is like the secret mastermind to like all of the stuff going on. And we only really get snippets of him. Like we know that his eyes were glowing at one point, as Molly pointed out. He looks kind of like King Asura, like he has kind of like, he has kind of like the similar facial features. So we don't know if he's maybe like a prince who's been sent away, or like someone that just has a grudge, because he's constantly throughout this series just hammering the fact that he wants Ulaan to die. Like this guy's got to go.
Yeah.
But I just think it's really interesting the way that this whole scene was played out.
I think that's the image of him where he says must die.
Yeah.
He really does look like he could be related to Ulaan in some way.
Yeah, and it's interesting that he's saying this in light of what we find out about him later, which I don't actually want to say what he does later because I tried to keep the episodes like self-contained, even though it's already finished. But yeah, so it is interesting that he has this, this is what he's saying, going on what he does later.
Yeah, we're not mentioning it, but still, yes.
For her, and she's thinking to herself, like, you're right, she doesn't know she would have been. Actually, do you want to take over from here, Molly?
Sure. I mean, she still has, I kind of think of it as like a dog tag almost, like she still has that little clay tablet. I assume it has that young man's name on it. Xiaoyang, how are you today? And it's just really that she still carries it with her. But, going into where it's kind of a flashback again of where Ulaan and Yuwa were together by the fire, where he's talking about, she couldn't kill a bird, and sort of reflecting back on protection and strength and things like that. I think again, just sort of like contemplating on what he said to her in the previous episode about his duty as a king. She's got a lot to think about. In the next scene of her, she's really hunching over. I think she's, where she says, I'm just a traitor. So there's just a lot on her shoulders that I'm sure she's putting on herself, but probably just being raised in the royal family, you're just probably indoctrinated of like your responsibility and your loyalty to the kingdom and the people and the king, and it's just overwhelming. But I just love the transition from here to Ulaan talking to his horse, which I just love. He's having this conversation, kind of like, I hate to say it, but like Frozen with Kristoff and Sven.
Yeah.
Why do I hate to say it? It's great. I love Sven.
'Cause I almost picture the horse having Sven's voice. I don't know why. But he's talking to his horse and basically saying, what serves me, he realizes he crossed the line with her. The horse is basically just, doing that I'm not going to do it, the horse sound, whatever. But he's acknowledging that he crossed the line with an enemy. He's kidnapped the princess, and knowing that she didn't know who he was. And but I think he's recognized that just this little bit of time he spent with her, he's in deep, and he wants more. I don't know where I leave off, but yeah, I just love this. I love the conversation with the horse.
Mhm.
Adds a little.
And yeah, he's saying that like it starts off with him, touching his bleeding shoulder because she thwacked him with the bow and opened up his wound. So he's like, yeah, serves me right for crossing that line.
Yep. And then it moves into a conversation that he's having with his council. And he finds out that the princess didn't, which right now he still thinks that she's Princess Yuzhen. So they're telling him she didn't turn up for the ceremony. She's missing. So Kwon,
I think I think since we're getting to the end, I think maybe Tina should switch to that.
Okay, I can take over. So yeah, they're having this a heated discussion where they're basically saying that like the princess has gone missing. She was supposed to be getting married, and like that marriage was supposed to be solidifying an alliance, and stuff. And then you have council member number 2, poor him. He basically says that like the rumor has it that the wench you've brought back. So he's like being disrespectful about Yue, and like it's just poor him. Like that she's brought back as an Eastern princess, and if that's true, it could be the missing princess Yuzhen, which she's pretending to be Yuzhen. Like he doesn't know that she's not her, but he's assuming that that's her. And he basically says that he tells Ulaan that he would be a fool to release the Eastern whore back, and the guy gets his hand. I love this scene so much. He gets his hand just like, I must be very bloodthirsty. He gets his hand just impaled by Ulaan's sword for like talking bad about Yue. And you have the guy behind Ulaan, that's his brother, right?
Brother?
I think that's his older brother. For some reason, I don't know. For some reason, I think that might be his older brother.
He's got a few brothers, right? He's the youngest.
Because he's got a few brothers. Like but anyways, the guy that's behind him, he's basically one of the generals that's constantly like coming in and out of and having conversations with Ulaan. And he basically tells him, like, he tells the council member, like, you need to watch your mouth because the king's not in a good mood right now. But and they're all begging for mercy while Ulaan is on his throne in a council meeting. But it just goes to show like how much he cares, I guess, about like how like close he's grown to her, because it was mentioned previously that like princesses have gotten sent to him and he just doesn't really care about them. Like he just really, it's just like whatever. And it's to the point now where like he doesn't want anyone to say anything bad about her. So then that's kind of like a little flashback, and then like you see him like cursing because he's still talking to himself back here. And he's basically saying that he wants like more, like he understands that he's crossed the line, but he can't help himself at this point. He's enjoying being around her. He's enjoying, the banter and just looking at her smile and all that other stuff. And he like him like with his head down, like he knows he's in deep already. And then these last panels, like the emotion in them like, so we have Ulaan coming back into his tent, and we have Yuwa, like she's holding up a garment initially, and he's basically asking her like if she's gonna wear it, like, but it's kind of belligerent, like he's just like, you're not gonna wear it. And she explains herself because she's looking at this delicate garment, and she's just like, well, I don't want to get it dirty. It's obviously been well loved by whoever owns it, and it's well worn, and I'm dirty. I don't want to get it filthy. And you just see that beautiful panel of just his kind of facial expression, and he looks so vulnerable in this image. Like he looks like he genuinely just cares about everything that she's saying right now. And then he like reveals that it was a gift from his dad to his queen, to his basically his mom. And that's where it ends. That's where the episode ends.
The arrow to the heart.
The arrow in the heart. But it's I love that facial expression. Because it's just it kills me. Like you could just see how much he cares in that moment, just watching her and having her like even without her realizing what it is, like she's being considerate of someone else's stuff. And it's for it to have been his mom's dress that was a wedding gift from his dad. Yeah. It's arrow in the heart.
Tina, I wanted to add to what you were saying about
Yes.
that look, the money shot look right there. I mean, I think one of the things that LadyDusk does so well is for conveying the emotions for men and women. And just, I've seen that. And I mean, that's why MPL is so amazing, because Tora has that look all the time. And and it's just LadyDusk is like a rising star. You're just I wish I had discovered AB first prior to reading MPL, but I was really late in the game. But I just, looking at it now, you get to appreciate all the magic that's going into the stuff that she's making. So
I've always felt that Tora would be as open emotionally as Ulaan is if he hadn't gone through the trauma as a child and been raised by Vincent the way that he was. Because Tora has those he has very similar expressions. They're just micro expressions. Right. You don't really see them, like they're not like big expressions of sadness and of happiness and surprise. It's just like his eyes will just like slightly open up, and it's because he's been conditioned by Vincent not to show his expressions, as opposed to here you have Ulaan who's a king. Right. And he can show his displeasure, he can show his happiness, and it's so interesting to just see these two men who are very similar in character, and how like they love each other, like love the women in their lives, but also how they express themselves.
Right. And I think it's really interesting that he chose, I mean, he's had this contemplation about wanting more, and choosing this garment because he's probably got treasure troves of like garments to give her from just wherever, spoils of war, who knows, but like this is so, it's like it just hits you when he tells her whose garment it is,
especially considering that it's the first gift his dad gave his mom. That's not something that you just give to anybody. It's an heirloom, right? Basically.
And the fact that she's so sensitive with it, without knowing much about it, just shows her nature and how she's so attentive and considerate. Oh, and I think that's the reason, like he already liked her, but this is just making him like her even more.
Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely.
Cynthia, I wanted to go back to what you were saying about how she's always been given like the secondhand goods, even when she was a playmate to the grandson who had died, to her grandson's nanny. Like she was given candy by someone of lower status, and now this, even if it's seen as she didn't, at first he might have thought, as Tina was saying, that it was, oh, you're not going to wear it, and he seemed a little belligerent about it. but she recognizes quality, and I think he can see the quality in her even if she can't see it in herself. And she doesn't realize how much power that she has over him and her position and all that she's going to accomplish / will accomplish. So this is really, and that her face at the end of that panel, that was really they had like the same face, you know, vulnerability wise. So I was like, a lot of love.
Yeah, they both look fantastic.
I mean, yeah.
And these like full profiles, they just with their long flowing hair, they just look beautiful.
Asura's Bride is it's such a beautiful, like, just panel wise. It's so beautiful. Like just looking at the artwork. The story is amazing, but just the artwork, I understand why it's so short, because I can only imagine like how long it took her to draw this. But it's so gorgeous.
And the color choices through the whole thing, the palette is so consistent through all the panels. Just a beautiful, natural, I don't know, the colors are just wonderful.
Yeah,
it's all like warm colors, like the reds and the browns basically most of the time, and white, a lot of white space. And that background, like the background is textured to be like an old,
like rice paper,
Asian art print. What, rice paper?
Yeah.
I always just find it just amazing how much emotion she can convey with just a shift of eyes, or like a turn of them, because it's like, I'm just looking at some of the facial expressions, and even the no face, like the no, like just no face at all, it conveys like so, like that conveys so much emotion. But just I've always going back and just looking at the little expressions that all of the characters make and stuff like that. It's amazing. Like it really is. It's gorgeous.
Yeah. So actually, I just thought of a really cool bonus question. Are you guys ready to move on to the bonus questions?
Sure.
Okay.